I'm waiting for the video to start, um, and it seems like it has. So that's good. I am, hopefully you can hear me. I've been having a little, I tend to have technical difficulties with these lives. This is the live on common issues in neurodivergent relationships. If anybody is listening, let me know if you can hear me. I have my AirPods on to try to reduce the ambient sounds because they've been disruptive to people in the past. And according to my monitor, it says that the Bluetooth is working. So hopefully, right. So hopefully you can hear me, but nobody's in the live right now. Oh, good morning. Good. Hi, Sandra. Can you hear me? If you can, I'm going to get started here. Oh, perfect. All right. I don't know. Again, every time I do a live, things have changed on Facebook, and so it's just different. Oh, good. Debbie's here. Amanda's here. Sophia. Oh, good. It's so nice to have friends in the audience. It's not telling me that anybody's here um, on my camera, so I have to look over at the comments section and make sure that I can see you. Remember now, you're welcome to add a question or a comment as I'm going through my presentation, and if I don't get to it while I'm talking today, I will answer it later. I'll go in and answer the question or pick up the comment. If you want to talk to me privately, if you want to leave me a private comment, all you have to do is click on my picture and go to the messenger portion, and there'll be a private place for you to put a message to me. Anyway, today the topic is common issues in neurodivergent relationships, and I do these Facebook Lives towards the end of every month to help you get ready for what we're going to be doing in the next month. So next month is May. Can't believe April's almost over. It's been amazing. But at any rate, what we're doing is announcing the events that are available to our meetup group. So let me tell you a little bit about that. The Facebook Live is open for anybody who wants to drop in and learn more about neurodivergent relationships, which is what I'm talking about today. And um, if you want to join our special private meetup group, you can attend these various events that I'm announcing today, such as our video conferences, our teleconferences. We have a private message board on the meetup site. We have, I record the teleconferences, so for members, paid members of the group, you're able to, listen to as many of these teleconferences as you want to. You just have to, uh, you know, sign up and make sure you're on the list so that you can have access. And honestly, those teleconferences go back many, many years. We are celebrating our 13th year as a group. So we've got teleconferences that go way, way back. You've got a wealth of information to help you make this adjustment to your neurodivergent relationship. So right off the bat, let me define neurodivergence for you. Many of you have heard a variety of terms, and I use these terms in my unique way. Professionals use all different types of terms to talk about autism, autism spectrum, neurodiverse, neurodivergent. Neurotypicals are people that aren't on the autism spectrum. Uh, ASD, Aspie, Asperger Syndrome. There's a lot of different terms out there, and the reason that there's so many different terms is that it just keeps morphing. Our understanding of this of autism just keeps morphing, and different terms come up to help us, I don't know, understand folks better. My particular area that I work with, though, is how autism and neurotypical realities collide, because we process information very differently as neurotypicals than the way that people on the autism spectrum process information. So one of the things that I thought made more sense is to refer to people on the autism spectrum as neurodiverse and people who are non-spectrum folks as neurotypical, or the neurotypical of most people around. And what we have then is when we have a neurodiverse person and a neurotypical person in a relationship, it's kind of like their worlds collide, but they also seem to be diverging. So I refer to the relationship as a neurodivergent relationship, which is, of course, how we feel many, many times. We feel like we're just not coming together. We're not connecting. We don't understand, what's going on. And it's because if we look at the definition of autism, which is a list of traits, we're not going to find answers there. The answers are how the autistic person is organized, how the neurotypical person is organized, and how those systems come together and work or don't work. That's where we get the answers. So a lot of times I follow up. I've got my cat wanting attention here, poor little thing. She's 18 years old, and it takes her a while. I'll show you her. This is little Trinity, my cat Trinity, 18-year-old Trinity. So hopefully she'll behave for a while and won't disrupt our video very much. I'll look to see if anybody's got any comments. Okay, good. We're still just hanging in there. Alrighty. So we've got lots of features to this meetup group too, by the way. I do want to let you know that another feature that we started a couple of months ago is our ambassador program. And Julie is our meetup ambassador, and she hosts a free video call once a month for members that are new. You don't have to be new, you could go otherwise as well. And what you get in that call is a chance to ask somebody who's been around for a while. Julie's been a member of the group for many, many years. She's been in a long-term relationship with a spouse, and she also has a grown child on the spectrum. So she knows about this lifestyle. She can talk about how she feels, but she can also guide you into which of the courses you want to take, which of the video calls are best for you, or teleconferences, or how to get started in participating in our group. But one thing you need to know is that participating in our group helps you not feel so alone. You realize that other people get it. Other people know what you're talking about. It's a big deal. Oh, Deborah's here, Diana. Julie. Hi, Julie. There's our ambassador. Okay, so let me tell you what's coming up, and then we can talk a little bit more about these common issues in neurodivergent relationships. The first conference in May is a video conference, and it's entitled, Is It Relationship, Codependence, or Self-Preservation? So I'm sorry, I don't have the dates down here. But they're in May, the first part of May. And all you have to do is go to the Meetup website and you'll find the dates. But I'm sorry, I didn't write them down. I just wrote the title down. Anyway, is it relationship, codependence, or self-preservation? So if you think about these worlds colliding, neurotypicals tend to reach out and try to solve problems by talking it through. And that's perfectly okay. It's just that what happens after a while is we find that we're sort of carrying the relationship, which would be codependence. That's codependence. On the other hand, if we don't do some of that carrying of the relationship, things get pretty awful. So partially that's self-preservation, isn't it? We have to step in and take care of things. We have to schedule things. We have to remind them to pick up the children from the soccer field. And we may resent that and get tired, but it's not necessarily codependent. So we'll talk more about something called prompt dependency. The second video conference for the month is, Why is Everything a Bottom Line Transaction for Aspies? And again, when you look at that, when worlds collide, it's a pretty easy thing to understand. For people on the spectrum, they are looking for the answer. They are looking for, what do you want? They're looking to complete a transaction. So everything pretty much ends up being a bottom line transaction. And I'll talk more about that. Whereas in this conference, neurotypicals are interactive. We're not always looking for what do you want, what's the bottom line. We're actually looking to invite the other person into our reality. We're trying to step into their reality and work on a win-win solution. So at first, we're very interactive. We're not transactional. We're just inviting people in. And then we move to transactions. People on the spectrum tend to avoid or not even recognize that there is a need for this interaction. They just go to the point, which makes us feel like we're entering a debate, or that if we just don't tell them flat out to do something, it won't get done. And so we'll talk more about not only why is that true for people on the autism spectrum, what are the sensory issues, what are the neurological issues for transactional thinking, but how to work with it. And then the third video conference is how do I stay sane in a neurodivergent relationship? So these are common issues that we find in these neurodivergent relationships, the codependency, self-preservation thing, the bottom line transactional sort of nature of people on the spectrum. And then staying sane, I think one way we stay sane is to understand this stuff, to know what we're dealing with. If we treat people on the spectrum as if they're interactional and neurotypical, we won't get anywhere. It'll continue to fall apart. And if they keep treating us as if we're ready for the bottom line transaction and everything is a debate, and as soon as something's finished, we should just move on, then they're going to lose. It's not going to work. So if we're going to stay sane, I think both sides need to learn that these styles aren't interchangeable, but we can accommodate to each other a little bit better. The other thing is that the only way I stayed sane all these years is surrounding myself with more neurotypicals, making sure I have friends that it's easy and comfortable to talk with, and also activities and rewarding activities, so that at home when it's such a struggle and you feel like you're failing, but you can quit and go to your boxing class, or you can get to work on your book of poetry, or you can volunteer at your kid's school. When you do things that are rewarding to you, whew, that helps you handle your neurodivergent relationship better. But we need to talk to people who also are trying to do is surround ourselves with neurotypicals who have no idea what we live with at home. We still feel alone, don't we? We still feel like we're left behind. Okay, so those 3 video conferences, by the way, are not recorded. They are for members only. And they're usually a small group of 8 people, maybe 10 people. And the reason I don't record them is I want you to have complete privacy. I want to use the video so that we can talk to each other and kind of be in the same room. So those are not recorded, and but I do offer them on more than one date in the month. So if you look on our calendar on MeetUp, you'll see that each topic is offered at least twice, sometimes 3 times, depending on how much I can fit in or how much of a need there is for the topic. Then the teleconferences, I told you, are recorded. As many people as want can attend. They're free to members, and you can, like I said, we usually get the recording up within 48 hours. You can listen to that day's recording, but you can also listen to the past recordings if you're waiting for this one to show up. So this month's teleconference is how to negotiate a fair deal with that transactional Aspie, basically, how to negotiate a fair deal with a win-lose Aspie. By the way, Aspie is a term that people on the autism spectrum invented. It's not something I came up with. It's not something neurotypicals came up with. It's a term that people on the autism spectrum named themselves. I'm not sure why they thought that would work, but it's short for Asperger Syndrome. At any rate, how to negotiate a fair deal with a win-lose Aspie in terms of surviving a neurodivergent relationship, you got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to step into their transactional reality and realize that they believe every time you bring anything up, it must be a transaction. It must be debated. It must be won or lost. And we have to learn how to step out of that transactional thinking from time to time in order to get something done with our partner. So if you stay in the transactional mode, then somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. That's not going to work very well. So what we want is we want to figure out how to gently nudge them into we're having a conversation. We're having a conversation. For neurotypicals, I want you to think about that. A conversation is enjoying each other. I keep looking over here to my comment section to see if there's anybody who's made a comment or saying it has a question for me because I want to be able to answer. And even though all I see are names and maybe a little photograph, it makes me feel like I've got my peeps. I'm talking with you and I'm waiting for you to say something back. So this is what we do. We enter into conversations, not into transactions. But they're into the transaction, so they want to know why you're talking. We don't usually ask somebody why you're talking. They want to know why. So for the transactional person, I'll give you a tip. That's what I would tell them. I would say, hey, I want to talk with you about making our plans for this weekend. I have some ideas. Do you have some time here in 10 minutes? Or do you have some time right now to talk about this? And they'll say, yes. What do you want? Or they'll tell you what they want. And you'll say, well, that's good. Yeah, I have some ideas, but I haven't decided yet because I want it to work for both of us. I'm looking for something that you want to do and I want to do, and we'll both be happy with. And it's hard for them to disagree with the idea that it's a good thing to come up with some plan for the weekend that we both want to do. I think they would agree with that, but doing it is tough for them. A lot of times they'll just say, well, you just, whatever you want. And then we can do whatever we want, but we want them to share the process with us, right? Life's a journey, not a destination. Where did that expression come from? It came from neurotypicals, probably. Okay. After the teleconference, Julie, I think I got the date right for you. Maybe you could make sure that's true. I think Julie's having her ambassador um, event on the 20th of May at 2 p.m. Pacific time. What would that be New Zealand time? I'll just wait for her to put that in there. Somebody else is talking about Ariel, that the connection is poor. It's the internet. What I find is that whenever anybody has reported to me on Facebook Live that the broadcast is choppy, when they go to YouTube where it'll be posted after today, you'll find it on my YouTube channel. It's not choppy. It usually comes through pretty well. Once in a while, there's a glitch. So it's probably just your reception. It also could be the speed at which I'm sending it out, but hopefully you'll get the bulk of it on the recording. So Julie, let's see here. Oh, I'm looking, I got to scroll down here. Oh, there she is. She said 2 p.m. Yes, it's 9 a.m. New Zealand time on Saturday, the 21st of May. So that's just two time zones, but you can Google your time zone and figure out when it is. So I really would encourage you to attend Julie's video call because like you're going to learn from other people too. Most of you, well, Julie, I think she probably has half new people and half people who've been around for a while, something like that. And so you get the experience of people who've been in the group for a while. Let's see here. There was a couple other comments that people made too, and I want to make sure I get to them. Oh, thank you, Sandra. She says, thank you. You obviously are experienced. I have a lot to learn. Well, believe me, I keep learning things too. In fact, anybody who hasn't been to one of my lives or our group, maybe in the last couple of years, I don't think 2 or 3 years ago I was talking about transactional nature of Asperger syndrome at all. So it's a big deal to begin to understand that and to be able to apply it in your life. So Deborah says the transactional interacting difference is so important in understanding NTAS relationships. I think so too. I think it's like one of the biggest breakthroughs to really understand that they aren't trying to hurt you, but I want you to get this. Because they're transactional, and by the way, on this live, people are on the spectrum as well as neurotypical. It's not limited to neurotypicals, it's a public forum. But the transactional approach makes neurotypicals want to quit. A transaction means something gets done. When it's done, you move on. If the neurotypical is trying to just share herself or himself, you wouldn't want him to be told that we're done and just move on, right? You're trying to interact with that person. You're trying to share with them. But the transactional person's tone of voice, the kind of comments they say things like, well, whatever you want. What do you want to do for the weekend? You say, well, do you have some ideas for the weekend? And they go, no, whatever you want. And it feels like it's over then. It feels like you're being dismissed. So they don't mean to dismiss you. They think they're just answering your question. And they often think our need for conversation is, how do I say this? Needy. Many people on the spectrum think neurotypicals are needy because we just keep trying to reach out. We want to be affirmed. We'll even say, I want to be validated. I want to be seen. I want to be known. I want you to get me, right? We're always saying things like that. And that's because we're interactional. It's not because we're needy. It's because we come to know who we are in relation to others, right? So, for example, behind me, which way do I lean? I guess I have to lean this way. I have this little sign that says, I have sunshine on a cloudy day. Yeah, it says I have a sunshine on a cloudy day, and I put it in my window. Now, you got to know, I live in the Northwest. Do I have a few cloudy days here? Right? So that's a little statement about me, right? That's information about me that an interactive person would pay attention to and say, "Oh, I just love that little sign behind you." When if I get up and go get a cup of coffee or something, they go, "Oh, that's just perfect." But a neurodiverse person may not even notice the sign, or they might say, "Why'd you put that in your window?" Right? And it sort of feels like the conversation is over. And you don't even have to like something that somebody does. That's not the issue. The issue is affirming that that represents who they are. Does that make sense? I hope. So I think that transactional interactional piece is just huge because with the transactional person is often quite confused that we don't that we're upset, that the conversation seems to have gone nowhere, and the neurotypical just is distressed beyond belief, and the transactional person is going, what did I do? What did I do? What's wrong? Reminds me of years ago, I had somebody, uh, an autistic man, say, what does get it mean? I had a feeling I knew what he meant, but I asked him to explain. And he says, well, my wife is always saying, you just don't get it, right? You just don't get it. And what she was referring to, this neurotypical spouse, was that he didn't get her intention. This is another distinction for you. In neurodivergent relationships, the neurodiverse person is listening to your words. The neurotypical person is listening to your intention or your meaning. I want you to think about how different that is, right? Does that make sense? So different. If you hear the words, but you're not asking yourself, what does this mean? What does this person intend to be sending me? Then you respond to the words. And that's when we get from our transactional neurodiverse loved ones, they say things like, well, you didn't say that. or just tell me what you want, right? But that's on the other side of things, because us neurotypicals are listening to the intentions or the meaning or the in-between stuff. We feel like they aren't listening to us because they're responding to the words, not the intention. So if you're just responding to words, you miss the subtle emotional impact of comments. And this is why we get into codependency, um, and difficulty staying sane in these relationships. We keep thinking something's wrong with us when there's nothing wrong with you. They're just different styles. So let's see here. Have I missed something? Make sure you put some comments in, and or a question if you have something for me. I'm willing to wander off the path a little bit and talk about things, other things. So far, everybody's just being kind of quiet and saying, "Yeah, that's true for me." Um, yeah, and Zoe says, I'm not that needy. Yeah, we aren't that needy. Actually, it's the opposite, isn't it? Neurotypicals are actually very giving. We're willing to acknowledge others. We're willing to affirm others. It brings us joy to validate the other person, to have them smile. Or if you notice the sign behind me, oops, I'm gonna lean this way. If you notice the sign behind me and said, "Oh, that's so cute, Kathy," and you see me beam with delight that you noticed my sense of humor, we feel good about that. But when I ask my neurodiverse clients to, to say a compliment or thank your spouse for, a wonderful dinner, a lot of times they say things like, "Well, you know, I don't want to make her feel like I'm trying too hard." So Donette, yeah, good question. She says, "How does codependency develop in these relationships?" So it really is mostly our fault. What? Oh, yeah, you're welcome, Zoe. Um, how does codependency develop? It really, I years ago I wrote a blog about what's the difference between codependency and kindness. I think I was close, but not quite right. Codependency develops really because we are making an effort to reach out to the other person. We're trying to understand them. We believe in this process that we use, this interactive process of it's us in it together, right? We're in it together. And so, but what happens is that we prompt our partner with, "Hey, what do you want to do this weekend?" So that's a prompt. And they say, "I don't know." And so they sort of drop your prompt. And so we try again. We go, "Well, we've got some free time. Let's go do something fun. Maybe we should go on a hike or something." And then they say, "Well, if that's what you want," drops it again, right? And you go, "Well, I would like us to enjoy the time together. Do you have some other ideas?" And he says, "Listen, I told you it was okay. Why do you keep asking me?" Okay, when you have those kind of conversations over and over and over again, what do? We try harder to reach them. We keep trusting this process that I must have missed his reality somehow. I need to step in even more. And this is where Bronwyn talks about prompt dependency. She's a member of our group, by the way, but also a researcher. And she developed a concept called prompt dependency, where we just keep throwing out prompts, hoping that sooner or later it's going to work. And that's what this group is about. It doesn't work with them. And we end up giving up our lives in codependent fashion by dancing around that other person until we finally find something they want to do. And we do that for the weekend, and they didn't care if we wanted to do it or not. I hope that answers a little bit. Um, so, SMA, oh, you disappeared there. I think you're still here. It says, "How can I protect myself and take a kind of rude reaction?" Um, Maybe you mean and not take a kind of rude reaction personally. Uh, yes, well, that requires really having a strong sense of self, doesn't it? When someone attacks you, it's really important, even if they don't mean to. Like many of our Aspies don't mean to make it an attack, they're just transactional. One of the things that's important to do is to remember that you are not defective. Neither are they for that matter, but you are not a defective human being. You're enough, you're okay. Um, but it is hard not to have, I call these micro hits. When you get a little micro hit, that's, our initial reaction is to be repelled by that behavior. It physiologically affects our defense system, our stress system. So we have to take a deep breath, get a glass of water, go for a walk, write, journal something, call a friend, blow it off, and then go back and fix it with the other person, which is easier said than done. But, you can learn to do that. You can learn to do that. To not take it hard, to not be affected by rude comments, that's impossible. So forgive yourself. It's impossible because we physiologically react to narcissistic behavior. This is kind of narcissistic behavior to be rude to you. Why would you be rude to your loved one, right? Just because you didn't know you were being rude, is it not rude? As parents, if your child is misbehaving and they say, "Well, I didn't mean to," that's not good enough, is it? No, not even close. We expect them to repair the damage, and so should your autistic loved one, and the neurotypical loved one too. If we break down in anger and distress over the way we're being treated, and they didn't really know how to do it better, I mean, we can apologize for that. So Deborah says, we as NTs are not so needy, but we have needs that the AS person doesn't pick up on. So we need to explain it. Yeah, if they will listen to the explanation. I think the explanation works better if you just say, "That's the way I am. I just like it when you're a bit more polite. When you notice me first, acknowledge me, say hello first." In fact, I had an ASD client today. He was so adorable. He launched in to talking and then he stopped himself right away and he said, "Oh, how are you today, Dr. Marshak? How are you?" And I laughed and he said, "I just realized I forgot to do the interactional stuff." So he wants to. He wants to learn how to do it, right? Um, I do think what Deborah's talking about is important in another way. Your AS loved one does not pick up on the energy of interaction, which is empathy. They don't have empathy. They're not picking up on the in between innuendo, the tone of voice, my head moving. They may say, "Why are you moving your head all the time? Why are you always moving around?" And in fact, the other day, I know I am bouncing around here, but the other day, one of my clients spilled some tea on her blouse, and she was laughing and saying, "Oh, I'm always spilling on myself." Her autistic spouse sat right next to her, didn't budge. He just sat there. And I said, "Well," and when she said, "I'm always spilling things on myself," I said, "Me too." That's because we're neurotypical. We are moving, we're gesturing, we're offering something to somebody. So if you happen to have tea in your hand, you might spill some. So they don't understand either. We're not sure if they're not seeing or hearing the cues, or if there's a delay in processing the cues, or maybe both. And that's why Peter Vermeulen calls it context blindness. All right, so they're not necessarily even aware there's another type of communication going on that we just take for granted. So I like Deborah's notion of explaining that it's not that she's needy, but that there are other types of messages she would like acknowledged, and he or she is just missing it. That's science, and that's a good bottom line to offer your ASD loved one, that there's more going on than you're aware of. That's okay. You're wired the way you are, but I would like some acknowledgement that there's more that I'm asking for, even if you're not sure. So, like this client of mine who said, "Oh, wait. How was your day? How's your day, Dr. Marshak?" He was acknowledging that I like that. See, he's acknowledging that there's a little affirmation process that I would prefer. And that's sweet. He's following a rule, but he's doing it because he cares. This is really important. Your ASD loved ones can learn to follow rules of engagement, even if they don't really totally get why they're doing it. They know you want that because they love you and they're willing to do it. And yeah, Zoe says it gets tiring after you have to ask for years. That's the reason that I'm saying take care of yourself. That's one of our conferences. How do I stay sane? Um, yes, we can gear up and ask for things and guide our transactional Aspie, but it's so tiring that you don't have a life left when you do that. And I think that you got to have other people to be with where it's easy and comfortable and they know you. And you start to text a friend, and before you finish the text, she's texted you back. We want people like that in our lives. Ariel, my Aspie has what comes across to me as a memory or cognitive deficit. He forgets important aspects of our conversations, but I think it can be explained by the transactional nature of their relating. He simply can't hear things that aren't black and white. It says, and therefore they were never said in his mind. Yes. Uh, let's see here. Make sure I didn't miss something. So what Ariel is referring to is if we're interactional and we're people motivated, we store our memories according to our relationships with other people, loved ones, coworkers, our pets. We store our memories that way. They do not do that. They're listening to our words, not our meaning. We store the meaning, not the words. It's really important to see the difference. So one of I've been recommending lately that people watch Hannah Gadsby, the Australian comedian who was diagnosed with autism 5 or 6 years ago as an adult. And she acknowledges these kind of things, that she doesn't really hear things, see things. In this one YouTube of her show, or excuse me, she wasn't a show, it was she was being interviewed by a Scandinavian talk show host named Frederick Skavlan. And in the talk show, he was asking her questions about her autism and so forth. And he said, well, you say that you have anxiety around people and that it's a neurological thing, autism. And he says, but you're on this talk show, with other guests and an audience, and, you seem to be doing okay. I mean, how can you do this? And she said, "Oh, well, but I did my research." And she points to him, "I did my research." And he's a neurotypical, right? So he leans in, he's excited. She did her research on me. She knows something about me. That's what he's thinking. That's what you would think, right? But that's not true. She's transactional. She did her research. And he said, "Well, what did you learn? What'd you learn about me?" And she says, "Well, I learned that you're just one of these people that ask questions and you just want answers to questions." And you should have seen the look on his face. He just looked at her like, "Well, yeah, that's true. I want answers to questions," right? Empathy is a lot more than words, isn't it? It's a lot more than answers to questions. It's listening to the person. She watched videos of Scavlan and didn't learn anything about him personally. That's hard to live with. So they also don't remember things because it's not stored according to the relationship, right? They don't have a system for storing all of our meaning, which is all over the map. By the way, if they write things down, they do better. If they pop it in their phone or put it on a piece of paper, they do better. I have one client on the spectrum who learned to take notes when he was 13. He figured out that he didn't know he was on the spectrum, and he's retired now, but he learned when he was in middle school to take notes because what he discovered is that he doesn't he couldn't remember anything unless he wrote it down. And we have to take notes too, but not like that. He takes notes in every conversation he has in order to remember what happened. Right. Um, process verbal input very well. They process written communication much better. That's the note taking. So writing letters or emails helps. Exactly. One of the things is also a delay. So many of them actually can get your meaning, but not right away. So they might need to look at their notes, sit down and write an email, or if you write an email that they can read over 2 or 3 times and then get what you mean, it works better. But this is a subtle thing that we have to pay attention to, as in terms of empathy, we want somebody to get us right now, right? Like the man says, what does get it mean? We want people to get me now while I'm talking. That just feels, that kind of connection feels like love, right? That's connecting. But if they can get it later and come back, I'm telling this, I tell my clients this all the time. If you can go back in 20 minutes or a half hour or 2 days and say, you know, when we were talking the other day, I missed something important to you and I want to tell you about that. I want to find out if that's true, right? If they do something like that, boy, we're in heaven. Feels good. Right. So Louise is saying most of her important communication is written. Uh, yes, but it's you can't totally have no verbal conversations. Um, oh, well, this is a good point that Louise is bringing up. In terms of verbal, if neurotypicals can get to the point quickly, it's easier. They don't get lost. Remember, they don't read all that innuendo, all the empathic cues. Um, People on the spectrum refer to our nonverbal behavior as confetti, fluff, backstory, curly cues, yakking. They don't read it as information that we're sending out and receiving. They don't read it at all. And so we think we're being direct when we start out by telling a story or how's your day or what do you think of that, you know, the art event that's coming to town. We're not being direct. We're connecting. Those are connecting chit chat, small talk, I like you comments. So what's important is to start with what the point is and say, or you can even say, you know me, I can't get to the point without a little chatter first. I hope you don't mind. They can cope with that. And let's see, I'm trying to get to the bottom of my list before I run out of time. Uh, oh, Cassandra Syndrome. Yeah, I think what you're asking, Asa, is how do we deal with that? That's the burnout factor for people, neurotypicals. Cassandra is a myth. So I believe it was a Greek myth. Um, and it's too long a story to go into, but basically it's a story about someone who could tell the future, but she was cursed by Apollo, I think, who said, you can have this gift, but nobody's going to believe what you're telling them. So it's really tough when we've got this awareness about what's going on, but our loved ones don't believe us, our friends don't believe us. It makes you feel, um, since we are seeking affirmation from others, it's really tough when you don't get it, and then you 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 start believing that you don't have a life anymore. That's not good. So Jackie says, why do they watch Hallmark movies, get teary-eyed, and think that makes them sentimental? Yet the struggles to stay present in a relationship. You know, it's an interesting conundrum. We do think that people on the spectrum are extremely sensitive, maybe even more sensitive than neurotypicals. That doesn't make them empathic. So they can get into their feelings, they just can't get into yours. So They do want to feel, and they want to feel your love or your interest in them. They want that. But without empathy, they don't give it back. And then if they're super sensitive, they may be picking up all the energy in the room in some way and registering it inside, but they have no idea who it's coming from or what it's about. And that's why they have meltdowns. That's why they often will block communication because it's too stressful to hear. But think about a Hallmark movie, especially Hallmark. We all know how those are going to end, or a novel, or certain uh, 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 things that certain movies where we just kind of know that it's going to get wrapped up in 90 minutes. That's a lot easier to engage in than it is real life, where you have to really listen to where that other person is coming from, right? Where are they coming from? That's what we're listening for. We're listening for, what is this telling me about that other person? That's important to us. Okay, I'm almost out of time here, so let me see if I can get to anybody else. Uh, I've heard we should speak concrete to them. Hard for me, a poet and writer who thinks in metaphors. Oh my gosh, I know. But see, Ariel, what I would do is I would just say, you know me, I'm a poet, so let me wax and wane here for a minute, and then I'll get to the point. Because you shouldn't have to be codependent, right? You shouldn't have to give up who you are so that you can help them along. Um, but you could say, if I still don't make any sense, I'll write you an email later. I'll text you later with what the bottom line is. Mary, thank you for all of this great info. I was better with my husband's ASD before menopause. After 23 years of really taking care of things, I'm also a nurse and mother. I've decided to move forward. I'm not sure if I want to continue always dealing with these issues. I've been living in my own condo for 13 months and feel great. This is really, I'm so proud of you, Mary, for revealing something like this. Many, many people take their lives back by moving out, by giving yourself a home to go to where you just can breathe free and be you and aren't always codependently responding to the communication style of the transactional person. Transactional people are very powerful. We tend to be pulled over into that transactional stuff, and then we're really tired. And years ago, I had a member of our group join us because she had been contemplating uh, getting a second home where she could go to get away from time to time from her ASD partner. And well, she didn't know that her partner was ASD. She wanted to get a second home where she could go away for weeks at a time. And this, she discovered our group where, yes, there are a lot of people that have to do this. Um, One of the things that's important as people are saying, I don't know if I can hang in there, if I can take this. Um, if you're feeling that way, you're right on the edge of burnout or you're already burned out. So take a vacation, get away, take good care of yourself for a while so that you can rethink what you want to do. Because if you're waiting for a transactional person to reach out and say, how can I help you? That's probably not going to happen. They don't know how to do that. So you have to help yourself. Oh, yeah, SMA, I love it too. She says, I love listening to all your explanations. Everybody's different, but it's like you know my Aspie sometimes. And so you do understand me. I have another question. My Aspie is so often angry at me when I'm talking and laughing with friends on the phone. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's the interesting thing. How many of you can't raise your hand, but I bet you've noticed this. Many times they will notice that you have an easy, comfortable style with other people, but you don't with them, and they don't know it's them. They don't know it's because they're transactional and they're shutting you down, right? So they get annoyed when they hear you laughing and chatting, and some of them will even say, "Well, why don't you talk to me like that?" And you go, "You know what? I try. It just doesn't work. They need therapy." And I'm serious about that. In therapy, they can learn that you're a gem. that you're exceptional, that you're a prize. They can learn that. They may not be able to operate totally on your level, but they can get over feeling badly about themselves too. It's just the way they're wired. They don't mean to be mean. So Deborah's leaving us. Let's see here. My recently ex-partner showed all the signs of autism, but there was also what seemed a very cruel side, which I struggle with for a long time, as this seems so narcissistic. This is from Gaynor. And I think I might end on this note, even though it's not exactly upbeat. If you're autistic, you can lean narcissistic. Anybody can be narcissistic. But the reason I say you can lean that way more than others is because of the black and white transactional thinking. If all you have to do is give an answer and turn around and walk away, and you think the conversation's finished, the neurotypical is going to take that as rude or gaslighting or narcissism. So in therapy, what I find with my autistic clients is when they finally understand how they're making people feel, they feel awful. They don't want to do that. The narcissist likes treating you badly. So that's the difference. Okay, I hope to see you all, or some of you anyway, at some of our next events. I am sorry I had some technical problems, so I didn't put the link up for MeetUp, our MeetUp group, but I can do that after the video and you can find it and click on that. Or you can just Google me, Kathy Marshak, and go to my website, and I have the MeetUp logo there. You can click the logo, and that'll take you to our MeetUp group to join us. And like I said, this YouTube this recording will be on YouTube later, and it'll have the meetup link there too. So thank you very much. Your questions are great. And I know there's so many more here. I'm so sorry. I will go back in later, either tonight or tomorrow or this weekend, and answer your questions. So take care, everybody. We'll talk again soon. Bye bye.